particularly the younger India, is consuming gold for investment, and they're looking at gold versus any other asset class. We as a jewelry sector need to do better to create products which match the lifestyle of people today. Go back 20 years, you could only buy it in the form of physical coin. You would pay a making charge, you would not know about the purity. There were a lot of concerns. And I foresee a time, sometime in the near future, 4 or 5 years from now, that the confidence on how you'll consume gold will be as much as any other contemporary asset as commodities or stocks or anything else. And I think ETF is, according to me, is really at the cusp of a phenomenal growth. It's a regulated product. It's backed by physical gold. It has all the advantages of a contemporary asset that on 2 clicks you can get it, you can sell it, all of those elements. But the awareness of that, I think sitting in this room, you could say it's a great product, everybody knows about it. But I can tell you, if you go out on the street and if you asked a typical regular Indian investor who knows ETF, there is no knowledge of that.
Welcome to Moneynomics, the podcast from Axis Asset Management. My guest today is Sachin Jain. He is the India CEO of the World Gold Council. He's not a novice in the space of luxury and jewelry and in general high-end products. His career has, over the last 20 plus years, has spanned everything from watches to diamonds, and now leading for the last couple of years the World Gold Council in India. I think you will find this very interesting. Sachin, welcome to Moneynomics by Axis Asset Management. Great to have you here. 25,000 tons at least of gold in Indian households. That, valued at today's prices, is about $5 trillion, which is about as much as the valuation of Indian equities market capitalization. Let's start from there. What's your reaction? What's your thoughts?
Well, that's I think that's to do with the firm reality of India, and that's to do with what gold meant to India, and the reason why gold is not just a commodity or a jewelry; it's a part of a social fabric. Way back millennia, it's been part of our kingdoms, part of our temples, part of families, part of wealth, part of what you pass on to the next generation. So gold, particularly in our market as India, has a much deep-rooted meaning. And the fact that over the years it's been collected, and whether it's 25,000 tons or more, it only has done a few things. One, it's brought in the real strength in a family. It's brought in real strength and wealth in the nation. And we saw even in times of COVID that the strength of a nation really was exhibited because every household had a bit of wealth.
Right.
And I think that's what the deep-rooted meaning is.
Your best take or your best thoughts in terms of how much gold is actually there, because this 25,000 of tons of gold is what we know has been mined or imported into India in the last 30 odd years. But how much is there?
Well, I think the number that we have is 25,000 tons is the aggregated number for 1991 imports to the country, and you perhaps are right. There is more gold for sure. To what volume, to what magnitude that is, I would not be able to give a comment. But I think I've seen a lot of reports that talk about between 30 and 35,000 tons and so on and so forth. But we've been working to investigate further as to what that is and how can this become part of the mainstream system of gold.
Right.
And very interestingly, what we figured out is that about 70% of this gold is in the form of jewelry, and about 30% of this gold is in the form of coins and bars, where the relationship of a consumer is very financial in nature. Right. And we think there's a lot of potential of bringing that out for a productive use in the nation.
Let's delve on that part a bit, because what is productive? Obviously, industrial use aside, how do we make gold more productive nationally and for individuals?
Well, I think there are a lot of characteristics of gold and hence the usage of gold. I mean, if I were to give you a bit of narrative of the last 30 years, go back 30 years globally, the central banks were net sellers of gold, and the main consumption or the usage of gold was jewelry. Fast forwarded to 2025, it's a very diverse usage of gold and a very diverse geographical consumption of gold. Earlier, about 30 years back, it was largely Western markets that used to consume gold. Today, the Eastern markets and the developing markets are the main leaders. About 74% of the consumption has come from China, India, Middle East. So that's the change. Sectorally, it's been very diverse. The main buyers over the last few years have been the central banks. That's one chunk of it. The investment demand of gold has been an all-time high, almost 42%. The jewelry demand, which, as I said, 30 years back was perhaps the only reason of consumption, is now about 32%. 31, 32%.
Right.
And the balance 7, 8% is technology. And all your phones use
Yes.
gold. And the more and more we need faster artificial intelligence chips, they use gold. So I think that's another area of consumption.
I'll pick the same thread that we've been talking about so far, right? The shift in demand for gold from jewelry to investing. How do you see this trend panning out for the next few years?
Now, to your point on the shifting trends, and I think the fact that jewelry is what it is. I mean, across the country we consume jewelry. Across the reasons of consumption we do so. The religious reasons, cultural reasons. Wedding still continues to be 60% of what we consume as gold. So I think that is one area that will continue. What has happened over the last 18 months in particular is that we've seen a huge surge in gold price, and we haven't given a breather to the consumer to sort of, particularly the jewelry consumer, to sort of stay put and say, okay, I should go out. We've seen 67% increase in the gold price just in 2025, and that's the global pricing. If you look at the INR terms, that's 73%. So it's not given a breather. Having said that, almost every listed player that we see in jewelry has outperformed and has done really well in jewelry sales. Now, volume might be down, but value-wise, it's an all-time high, and I think that's going to continue. The important thing in India is that this financial asset class consumption, and particularly the younger India, is consuming gold for investment, and they're looking at gold versus any other asset class. So I don't think it's really gold versus jewelry or asset class versus jewelry. That's a different segment, and we as a jewelry sector need to do better to create products which match the lifestyle of people today. I mean, if you look at, when we have those huge big sets of gold that normally are stayed in a locker for 364 days, perhaps taken out one day when you have a wedding or something, that transformation needs to be done. And there's a great amount of work happening in the jewelry side to bring solutions to the consumer.
I wasn't so much asking about this versus that. It's not investment versus jewelry, but rather to take a call on, is this trend of more gold being, shall we say, consumed or purchased for investment, is that a trend you see going forward?
100%. I think that's absolutely spot on. And we've seen that trend not just here, but globally that's going up. And gold is turning out to be a little more contemporary asset. It's a little more transparent. I mean, go back 20 years, you could only buy it in the form of physical coin. You would pay a making charge. You would not know about the purity. There were a lot of concerns. And I foresee a time, sometime in the near future, 4 or 5 years from now, that the confidence on how you'll consume gold will be as much as any other contemporary asset, as commodities or stocks or anything else. And there's a lot of transformation that's happening to bring the transparency and the confidence to the consumer.
That kind of, it's kind of inviting the question in some sense that new forms of gold investing, which is taken off, right? Obviously, as a mutual fund, we have gold ETFs and so on, and the industry has. But you also see the rise of these digital gold products and so on. What is your take, especially on these newer sort of digital gold products, some of which have been, of course, the regulator has been warning against and so on. How do you see that pan out? Why do these newer products exist when you can just as easily have bought an ETF or you can buy certified gold? Why do these products exist?
Well, that's a great question, and the answer really is that if you look at the digital natives that we have, we call our younger India. 2025, 31st December, 74% of us were millennial or younger.
Right.
So I think we need to all, in any market or anything building forward, we have to put strategies or build up our future based on this younger audience. And if they're spending so much of their life, of their awakened life on a hand phone, then solutions will come from there. It'll be more digital natives, it'll be having more digital solutions. And I think in the case of gold, there have been primarily two offerings. One is a digital gold, and I'll come to that, but also the ETF. And I think ETF is, according to me, is really at the cusp of a phenomenal growth. It's a regulated product. It's backed by physical gold. It has all the advantages of a contemporary asset that you, on 2 clicks, you get it, you can sell it, all of those elements. But the awareness of that, I think, sitting in this room, you could say it's a great product, everybody knows about it. But I can tell you, if you go out on the street, and if you asked a typical regular Indian investor who knows ETF, there is no knowledge of that. And I think once that product gets more awareness across the streets and the people, I think the fascinating aspect about ETF that you can hold gold, which is backed by it physically, is great. So I think it ticks off the digital consumption, ticks off the regularization and the whole strategy bit. On the gold, digital gold bit, a few years back, we were involved with certain organizations to conceptualize the idea of digital gold, which I think is a great way to consume gold. And I hope that the government of India regulates it. There's been a lot of conversation around it. They're good players and perhaps not so good players. And I really believe that with the technology becoming, almost democratic to available to everybody. I know people are offering technology for a digital gold at 20,000 rupees a year. So perhaps you and I, Shiv, can also open a digital gold asset. But hence, I think the consumer at large is at risk, which has been specified by SEBI. But they're great organizations that are trying to do a phenomenal job, and they're welcoming a regulation around it. What it does is it democratizes the entry level in gold. You can buy gold as low as 10 rupees. And that's a good way to sort of, in small values, make a big asset. So, and I think if you look at the next 5, 10 more years, I think there'll be more and more new digital products that will come to solve this need of the consumer.
Absolutely. I think I have no disagreement at all with that point of view. I think it's fantastic. Follow-up question to that really is whether it is digital. You mentioned about millennials and so on. I'm on the cusp of it, on the wrong side of it. Is that there's no emotional connect to an ETF. Meaning you can buy it on your phone or you can buy it wherever, but holding a piece of gold, which is the traditional Indian way of buying, is that you say, okay, I'm buying this piece of jewelry or coin or whatever it is, right? There is that touch and feel, and there's a strong emotional. Whereas an ETF is literally intangible. It's sitting in your account. How does that change? How does that change an investor's thought process or any buyer's, a gold buyer's thought process?
Well, I think it's not necessarily to do with the gold buyer's thought process. It is really addressing the additional usage or investment of gold.
Right.
We've done a lot of analysis on that. And even in the jewelry space, the largest segment of growth has been the physical bars and coins.
Right.
To your point, a traditional Indian consumer still loves to buy a coin, physical, tangible, let me put it under my bed or in my locker. So that exists. I think the need that this is the ETFs and digital gold is solving is an additional need. It's not so much of migration that we're witnessing in the market that jewelry consumers or physical, tangible consumers are moving away. But gold today becomes an alternative asset class when you're buying a mutual fund or anything else. So that's been the real change. And globally, if you see, this year we've crossed over 4,000 tons of investment in ETFs. So that's the overall AUM. If you look at the Indian numbers, 1st Jan 2024, we were 40 tons of AUM. 1st Jan 2025, we were at 56 tons. Fast forwarded to 2 weeks ago, we crossed 95 tons, which you might say that from 57 to 95 is just a 38, 39 ton up. But from the base of it, it's almost 80, 70% up, which is phenomenal in terms of how this is going to get consumed.
Yeah, so obviously and if you just, as all analysts love to do, just straight line that.
Absolutely.
That looks great. Given that you also work in other, in some sense, competing segments of jewelry, stroke luxury, obviously diamonds have had a tough time of it, especially with lab grown and so on and so forth. Can you just walk us through that space, meaning in terms of gold, silver, diamonds, and so on and so forth? So where does gold fit in? How does it compare and contrast?
I think it's a great question, and I think gold comes forward compared to the other areas as an extremely strategic asset class. And as World Gold Council, also we talk about a lot of study we do on diversification of portfolios, and there's a reason, scientific way by which we say it should be 10 to 15%. And last, particularly 8 months, we've seen an avid investor getting more sophisticated.
Right.
Meaning, you would say, I think I have a 10% diversification. Oh, gold to hai mere paas, to saying, do I really have it or not? And people are taking steps to do that diversification. I think if you go back to my life at De Beers, diamonds have been a phenomenal emotional asset. They hold value. As you said, that last couple of years have been a little tough. And I really believe that over the next 2 to 3 years, this whole lab-grown diamond conversation will get more and more clearer, because there's a need or an emotional need that natural things, elements that hold value serve, special moments of life that serve with natural things and things that hold value, to things that are technology produced. But I think that's their whole juggle between the diamond industry that's going on. But to your point, what's the role of gold there, what's the role of silver, and what's the role of diamond? I think diamond purely is a deep-rooted amplification of yourself. Gold offers both. It's an amplification. You wear gold, it does something to a relationship, does something to a human being, does something to adornment, and also holds value and appreciates value. Silver I'm less coherent on, because silver, the availability is too wide, and of course the asset has performed phenomenally well. But I think the industrial use case of silver is something that we cannot ignore. It's something that's growing substantially.
And obviously the market cycles will come and you'll have prices go up and down, etc., etc. But do you think, therefore, that this whole precious metals and stones, as in general as an asset, will continue to thrive? Is in the longer run? I mean, again, I don't want you to put an echo on your line and ask you for a price forecast, but
sure.
just purely from a perspective that sort of how do you see this? Again, not with a 3-month, 6-month view, but let's say a 5 years.
No, sure. I think the fact is that if you look at what's happening in the world today and the kind of life we live in,
sure.
There was 2 years back when the prices of gold started soaring. Everybody's immediate thing was it's because of Ukraine, Russia, or geopolitics and the wars and all of that. And just if you were to sort of subliminally sit quietly in a room and say what's going on,
right.
I think there's been constant wars that we've been a part of for the last 4.5 years. It's become a way of life. Something or the other erupts. Yeah. We had Venezuela a few weeks ago. Sad part is that we forget. Sad part is that life goes on. So there is a constant thing of this geopolitics that's been around. There's of course the trade wars that we saw last year erupting in April, and they also have become part of our life. We've not come to a settlement, but they're continuing. Sure. But if you studied it scientifically, I think the actual issue in the world right now is the global debt, and particularly the US debt, because of which the confidence on US dollar is decreasing, and all of those structural things are changing. Now, in that situation where you're just printing currency, and on one side, the reason why central banks, I think reason why central banks have bought so much of gold over the last 2 years is, I think in some way less geopolitics, has been more economic.
Okay.
Because there has to be certainty around what you hold, what is your asset like. And I think keeping those things in mind, fundamental wise,
right.
I think the winds are strongly in favor of precious metals because they hold that tangibility of sorts.
Right.
So what will happen in the next 3 months, I wouldn't know. But certainly in the long term, there will be a time where the way central banks are buying, the way investment demand is emerging, and the way I see gold getting a very contemporary technological based asset class, I think what gold did not offer before will help this the consumption go forward. I mean, only one number I like to share, that in 2025, the investment demand of gold crossed $6 trillion US. Now, if you were to translate that into INR terminology, it's 18,70,000 crores rupees per day. Now, that's how gold is moved. And if you think about this as an asset class, which still a lot of people, a lot of asset managers still feel gold is a little opaque, gold is not so cool, and so on and so forth. But with the whole transformation happening at the base case by making gold digital, there are three things that'll tangibly happen in the next couple of years. One, gold will be accessible 24/7, which today it's not. So it'll be like any other contemporary asset. Number two, it'll be fungible. So you'll be easily able to move from one country to the other, one organization to the other, one person to the other. And third, it'll be authentic. It'll be what we'll say it'll be. So I think with these changes happening in the asset class, I think the winds or the way the world is, it's fairly in favor of precious metals.
Okay. Taking a little bit of a step away from views on gold and so on, take a moment, because a lot of the audience that we talk to here is also young professionals. A lot of people really want to know how you've got to where you are, what is it that drives you, and so on. So if I can take a moment to discuss your career and what has driven you personally. You worked with Swatch Group, Tissot as a brand leader. You worked with De Beers, mostly everything in luxury space. What's driven you? What's driven your career? Did you know upfront that you wanted to work in this space?
I wish I did, but I think I've been very lucky.
Right.
Lucky to meet people, and you set out day one, you say I'm going to change the world, and it doesn't happen because realities are different. But I've been very lucky with the kind of coincidences that have happened in my life. If you ask me day one that were you building a career in luxury and the premium space, certainly not. You got a job and you were thankful that I got a job, man, I can get started. So I think it's been a series of sequences. I've had a great chance to work with the most exceptional human beings as my bosses, and I've learned so much from them. But purely the organizations, and I've seen a change where, and my career has panned out between Benetton, which was apparel, to Swatch Group, to a brand called Yadro, which is a Spanish porcelain brand, then De Beers, and now World Gold Council. And I think over the years, I've seen the importance of India in the global context changing, where if you were if you're a buyer from India, let's say in watches, you were not in the top priority. Now it's changed, and of course, certainly in gold, we are always right up there. But I think I mean, as you said, what could be my learning? My one learning is that you have to be, of course, positive, be open, and have that faith that you will make things happen. I think it's very simple, but it's very complicated as well. But I think that sheer optimism to what it could do is what I've led my career through. And to all the people who are listening right now, this phase of India is perhaps the golden phase of India. What we'll see happen in the next 10, 20 years will be exceptional. It's not happening anywhere in the world.
Right.
And people, young professionals who are building their careers will lead this up. So go with optimism. This is the best chance to be in this amazing country for ours.
What does a day look like as a CEO of World Gold Council India?
I belong to Meerut.
Right.
That's my hometown. So there's a lot of deep-rooted thoughts about my home there. But of course, I do a lot of travel. I mean, I live in Delhi, I work in Bombay. So typically, I'm a long-distance runner. And for me, running is less of passion, more of a reason to exist, in the sense that if I don't run, I won't be here. So I do, I do meditation, and I do a lot of physical activity from a point of running. And I was once told by somebody who's a mentor to say that whatever you do, you don't even like it, but you got to read an X minutes every day. You like it, you don't like it, but I think it's a great habit that I picked up.
Any book recommendations or podcast
I have loads and loads of them. I've been seeing things that are written here, which is amazing. But there's one book called The Calm, which I would recommend, which is not a very offbeat, very famous book, but it's one of the most easy reads and one of the most lovely reads that you can go back again and again.
Okay. Great, excellent. Thank you very much. I'll put it on my reading list. I've not read it. To be honest.
You must. It's an amazing. easy
Sapiens,
book.
though, although it's a bit controversial, but it's still worth. It's well written,
Totally.
well worth the read. In your career, you say obviously you've switched from apparel to watches, porcelain, kind of what do you call decorative pieces, and so on and so forth. Can you draw kind of common thread, because some of it is sort of B2C kind of businesses, some of it looks more business to business. What is the common thread? What sort of what learnings or what thoughts can you pick from that?
One of the most important common threads that I would say, right from all the different businesses that I've been and seen, is the amazing entrepreneurial spirit of this nation, and how. And secondly, I would say that how complex we are. Every 500 kilometers, our language changes, food changes, but also business ethics change. How we conduct business changes quite a lot. So those have been the learnings. But again, getting back to the same point, that over the years of my career, somehow one has been an ambassador of sorts to saying the future is here.
Right.
Give us perhaps even more budget to invest, or perhaps we can deliver more. But I'm glad that I was part of that initial journey where a lot of us were almost pushing our parent companies to saying, guys, focus here.
Right.
Now it's become a norm.
It's very interesting that as you have sort of gone to where you are today in the Gold Council, is that it is simultaneously a high-end product, but it's also the most retail, most democratic product that we have.
Doubt,
right?
Absolutely. I mean, you're spot on. Right. We gold is consumed by every geography and every economic strata in this country, and we actually interestingly running a project. One day actually I was free, so I took a train to 7 train stations in this city, Andheri and Bandra and everywhere, and I realized that there are about 40 to 50 small jewelers outside every train station, and we're coming out with a very interesting project for almost offering a McDonald's of sorts to the one income strata that consumes here. But you're right. I mean, there's consumption of gold happening at every strata of the income.
Before this conversation started, you were mentioning that you're working with the government in terms of a project to how can we make gold more productive from a nation building perspective. Would you care to share some thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like me, I'm sure a lot of people in 2025, when you go to perhaps any public platform, there's a mention of Viksit Bharat 2047, how we're transforming from the current strata of GDP to $30 trillion and all of that. And we were inquisitive about it. And we thought there's something more deeper in it, and we did approach the Government of India, Niti Aayog and the PMO to figure out what's the role of the gold industry in this $30 trillion, on this journey that our respectable Prime Minister has set out for all of us as a nation to go behind. And actually, we realized that there isn't really clearly articulated as to what's the role of the gold industry. And hence we were almost, I think, commissioned or advised by the government and the industry to set out on the journey, to set out what is the role of gold in Viksit Bharat. So we call this project Swarnim Udaan 2047, and the idea is to create an absolute clear roadmap of the gold industry as you get into becoming a Viksit Bharat. And how we went behind doing that was we got a bunch of futurists, people looking at future of the world, some leading CEOs of the world to bring us some guidance there. We worked with the government sector and worked with the industry to come out with this roadmap. And some 4 or 5 very important themes have emerged. We'll be launching this report in March. For example, very, very significant one is that if we believe that if the right triggers are pressed, then in the next decade, about 30% of the gold that we consume will come from our own gold, from our own mines.
Right.
So that's the work we've initiated with the mining ministries. Secondly, we think that there is a whole lot of gold in the households, and there is a way by productively we can get it out for productive use. And to your question, what that really means is that can we put less pressure on the CAD? Can we use the gold that's coming out from our own gold to be used in jewelry and other forms? And we think the answer for that is technology, and the answer for that is privatization, which is what we're working towards with the finance ministry. The third we think is that in the world of gold, while India is such an important consumer and we consume gold, we are a price taker. We are not a price maker. And there has to be a lot of reforms and changes done in the banking sector to allow us to be more, allow us to play a bigger role in a price making of gold. And that's the work we'll initiate with the RBI. We also think that India will be, and I say will as a very important element, because we've seen that in the diamond business. We think we will be the jeweler to the world. Today, of the 800 tons that we consume, we only export about 100 tons. And we're not really, being the supplier to the world as gold jewelry. And I think this whole trade war conversation, we will be winners there, because a lot of other countries where currently the dominant supply comes from as jewelry has the option to come to us. And the last bit I think is that there's an opportunity of growing tourism as gold tourism in the country. We are now opening up our conversations with temples in India, where we're offering them to build like museums of gold and so on and so forth. But I think the artisan work, the pure craftsmanship of this country is less celebrated and will be a very important element.
I think it's a very interesting question. Why is it that despite our extraordinary love for gold and consumption and gold jewelry tradition in this country, and as you said, every few 100 kilometers you get new designs and new, but gold unites the whole country. Why? What has held us back in being a major gold player in the world in terms of jewelry exports and so on?
Well, actually, it's been a little more focus, because we've been very focused on the Indian diaspora.
Right.
So the Indian diaspora, 35 million of us live overseas, and we consume gold the way we do. So a lot of the gold that is exported is still focused for the Indian diaspora, and coming very closely from the diamond business. Today, 14 out of 15 diamonds come to India for some reason or the other, cutting, polishing, manufacturing, trading, and India has become a center or the important center in the gold value, on the value chain of diamond business. And I think that entrepreneurship is, I won't say missing, but we are too busy doing the needs of the current gold market. And I think you will see very soon that we will capitalize on that area. So, for example, the needs of a Venezuela market. Of course, Venezuela is not a right example today, but it's a large gold consumer. Needs of the Brazilian market, needs of the European market. And today, the technology that is required to produce world-class jewelry is available, and there's great entrepreneurs in the country to start importing it.
Which are today not in terms of volume, but shall we say, who are your benchmarks? Who would you say that these are the countries that you would put as a benchmark for us to measure our success and say, okay, we will.
Well, I think few. So traditionally, it was a lot of that was happening in Italy, but Italy is now transformed towards a very fine quality of finish and needs. But I think we can take a share there. And clearly, for us, the clear competition is the China market, and the China consumption, as in the production. There's a place called Shenzhen, which is the manufacturing capital of the world for jewelry. And when you see the manufacturing centers there and also the individual factories, it's a different level. So there's a lot of work that we have to do to get to that level. So it's clearly China, I would say, is a competition, and we certainly have an opportunity.
So diamonds, yes, we are already there. Gold, we will get there, or
100%. I have no doubt in my conviction.
Right.
We will get there.
Okay. Tell us something about you. What has driven you? Something about you which people don't know?
Well, I already shared with you that I run long distances, which is I'm also a photographer. But these are some of the passions. I said I come from Bharat. I have been blessed by 9 very close friends, which form a part of our life. And I think I mentioned to you about physicality. And again, with the kind of jobs we all do, we get the great opportunity at times to go to these great courses and life transforming 2-day sessions, which 99% of the content just slips off mind. But there was one that I went to, and it was a very interesting session that I did, which has stayed with me for long, and I'd love to share that with you. We were the leaders of De Beers, 14 of us from all over the world, and the trainer was a 22-year-old kid from South Africa, and he came in and he said, I can't tell you how you can do your job better, but I can tell you certain other things. And you're like, really? It was pretty interesting. So he said 4 elements which are non-negotiable and 3 which are negotiable of sorts. So non-negotiable were sleep, eat, how much you eat, how much you do, you have to keep a sense on it. Exercise, sleep, you have to for so much time, what it does to your brain. And he was spending half a day on these elements. It's not just he said, he gave a whole practical input. It was sleep, it was eat, it was exercise, it was read. These 4 were non-negotiable. That you have to do the next element and what it does to your body, brain, whatever. The negotiable ones that he said, and I've stuck to them. Number 1 was your relationships and what friendship means and what it does to your mind chemically and otherwise, which is quite interesting. The other element he mentioned was around if you like something, and that could be, let's say, a game of golf or a massage. Whatever it is, go out and do that. And you got to do that. And you cannot be feeling guilty about it. You got to go out and very well get over it. And the 7th was how you manage all of that together. So I've been able to sort of manage this bit, and I think while these things of sleep and eat, and we all overdo at times, we all underdo at times, but I think it's just the basics, nothing else. So I've tried to stick with it, and it's done a lot of good to me.
What kind of photography do you do?
Well, abstract quite a lot, nature. I love wildlife. I've done a lot of important parks across the world. Again, because of me going to Africa, it allowed me to sort of dwell a little more over there. But also the parks over here were just amazing experience.
Any personal story that you want to tell us, which sort of you get this story about your professional story in some sense? Anything personal which goes back to your roots in terms of what is it that drives you, or what makes you who you are?
Well, I don't know about a story which doesn't come to my mind, but I think I feel very proud of where I come from. And I see a lot of people who distance from that pride, and they say, and I think I've always seen that being very proudful of where I come from gives me the confidence to what I am in life today. And I'm saying I've accomplished something very phenomenal, but my life partner is, we've been together since class 8, so we go back really long. I'm a tall fellow, she's not as tall as I am, but we were the same height when we met. So we have a daughter who's now in New York studying. But I think for me, it's that special bonding, and then that the relationships that I have really give me the strength. And I always advise or talk to people that God blesses us with the relationships. We just have to nurture them, and they enrich us.
I don't think there's any better way to end this conversation than over there. I think it was a fantastic conversation. And yeah, I think thank you very much for being here. I think we got a lot of insights. We got a lot of things. Would you like to sort of leave any message with our audience? Keeping in mind that many of them will be, people, investors or otherwise in the financial services business.
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed the conversation because it was not just specifically on where it's going to go and everything, but I think look at gold always from a long-term perspective. I think that's my simple advice. Also, I'd encourage your audience to get on the World Gold Council website. There's loads of information, but also interestingly, there's a tool to play. So the tool allows you to put you can feed in geopolitics, you can feed in other elements and see what the outcome of gold could be. So play with that model and if you believe the world will be a very calm place, it'll give you an option to sort of see what the outcome of gold will be. We'll play with that. But gold, I think, is very special. When scientifically we say that it is a great diversifier, but look at your own portfolios, but get to that scientific diversification. It's a great time answer to the word. But again, the only lens I will advise is long term. And if there is jewelry that you own, wear it. I think it does something to your adornment.
Right.
And last year in particular, we saw a lot of recycling of old gold to new gold, where you could get as contemporary design stuff. But it's something special. It's something that does to a human body. And on one end there's a trend of decluttering and simplicity and everything, which is fine. But try one time. Try to wear the gold. It's certainly going to do something to you inside.
Thank you, Sachin. That was absolutely amazing.
Thank you, Shiv.
A great conversation. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.